A recklessly spending governor from the party of fiscal responsibility has publicly demanded welfare from notorious Marxist communist socialist president Joe Biden. So, I've been wondering what the highest, most sincere compliment a person could pay to Texas Republican Governor Greg Abbott, other than he is not the least likable governor in the United States at this time. He's number 2 because Ron DeSantis is governor of Florida. Kidding aside, actually, no, I'm not kidding. That was real. But I've been thinking about Governor Abbott because yesterday he had the opportunity to put his unlikability and his hypocrisy on display during a trip made by President Biden to El Paso to visit the southern border. And this was a high-profile event because conservatives, Republicans, and quite frankly, many moderates and many people on the left as well are well aware of the fact that there is a major problem at the southern border. We're talking about, record drug seizures, particularly of fentanyl, record illegal contacts between illegal migrants and the Department of Homeland Security. Most people on both sides of the aisle agree that there is an issue, a security issue, a humanitarian issue at the southern border. Obviously, where the disagreements are is, number one, how much of that is President Biden's fault? Certainly it's his responsibility as the president of the United States, but how much of this began with Biden? Was there ever issues at the border pre-Biden? Was this something that Republicans took seriously until January 2021? What needs to be done about it? And also how big of a problem it is relative to other issues, right? So Republicans have been using this as a cudgel, making the case that, the border was perfectly secure under President Trump and not only during COVID, but pre-COVID, no humanitarian issues whatsoever, no issues. This is all a Democratic issue, a Biden issue. Biden wants open borders. Even though, and we'll talk about this in another video, virtually all the policies and the spending requests and the manpower requests under the Biden administration, they're virtually identical to what was requested under the Trump administration. As a matter of fact, there are many progressive activists who think that Biden has not gone far enough in terms of reducing certain Trump-era policies. The Remain in Mexico policy is still in effect. Title 42 is still in effect, even though I think in both of those cases, at one point, President Biden did try to rescind them, but he was court-ordered, I think, by both for both of these orders to remain in effect. So the bottom line is there is an issue at the border. And President Biden has finally gone down to visit it in person. And he met Greg Abbott there. Greg Abbott had this to say after the meeting.
Needs to step up and take swift action, including reimbursing the state of Texas for the money that we spent, but providing more resources for the federal government to do its job. Also,
it's a 30-second clip, but that's really those 13 seconds there are really what I want to focus on. The idea that Texas is cash-strapped to deal with this and that they need additional financial help and the federal government needs to step up. Now, the reason that's interesting to me is as this person, Christopher Webb, includes in his tweet, Governor Greg Abbott, who spent millions of taxpayer dollars trafficking thousands of migrants to blue cities and states, just said Biden needs to reimburse the state of Texas and that his visit to the border is just for show. For the record, declaring asylum is perfectly legal. This last part is true. The migrants that Abbott and DeSantis have been busing to sanctuary cities, actually not even that, like the Martha's Vineyard thing. Martha's Vineyard, famously done a couple of months ago where migrants were deceived into going to Martha's Vineyard thinking that they would be taken to their destination cities. Number one, Martha's Vineyard is not a sanctuary city. Number one, that's a big one. Number two, the migrants in question were deceived, as they often are, by Republican officials looking to get a gotcha in at the left. And number three, migrants who claim asylum, that's a legal process. That is perfectly legal. Okay. But it was a very expensive culture war moment. It hyped up the conservative base. No doubt it did wonders in the short term politically for Abbott. But this tweet's true. Abbott did spend millions of taxpayer dollars to make this completely unnecessary and ridiculous display of human cruelty in several times. So Governor Abbott's migrant busing program has cost Texas $12 million. Okay, that's a lot of money. And you might think to yourself, well, I mean, there are bigger sums of money out there. $12 million. Well, number one, it's $12 million completely misappropriated dollars because, again, what he did was bust people who were here legally claiming asylum, very often to places that they didn't want to be and that they were deceived into thinking they were going somewhere else when Texas could have accommodated them or allowed the court system to disperse them accordingly. But beyond that, so let's take that figure aside. Abbott's other stunts involving the border have cost Texas considerably more money than that $12 million. For example, you may recall that it was like March or April or May of last year, 2022, Abbott increased unnecessarily, I mean, just again to make a culture war gotcha point, he like sharply increased the rigor of border inspections from vehicles passing from Mexico into the United States through Texas. And it was like 4 days in effect, right? And it made headlines everywhere, these like increased rigorous border checkpoints. A Texas economist noted that cost Texas $4.2 billion and the equivalent of 36,000 jobs. Governor Greg Abbott ordered increased inspections, and they cost Texas more than $4.2 billion in goods and services, the equivalent of 36,000 jobs, a report from Texas economist Ray Perryman said Wednesday. $1 billion a day in cross-border trade to the United States and $470 million a day to Texas. That's insane. All, again, in pursuit of like headlines and gotcha moments, things that are not efficacious, policies that are not efficacious. And Abbott has cost his own state billions and millions of dollars in various stunts. And now he's looking to President Biden to compensate for his fiscal recklessness. The good news is that, well, at least for him at any rate, is that President Biden has increased or has committed increased resources to the border to help address this issue. And earlier last year, it was reported that President Biden got a commitment from the Mexican government of about $1 billion in additional border security, which is $1 billion more than the Trump administration got out of Mexico, even though President Trump swore that the security at the southern border would be paid for by Mexico, and it never was. So, again, just Abbott's, feigned outrage and his hypocrisy is on display, and maybe he should be more focused on working with the president and the federal government instead of these shameless stunts. So we'll see what happens. Hey, you! Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, and I hope that you did, please hit the like and subscribe buttons below. And if you absolutely hated the video, the best revenge for you is also to hit the like and subscribe buttons below. That'll teach me. If you want to share an opinion or share some feedback, go ahead and leave a comment, all right? 2023 is a year of change, hence the aggressive rebrand and commitment to new content. Inspired by my friends Luke Beasley and STV Philly, my personal goal for this channel is to hit 40,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So I'm hoping you'll do me a solid by spreading the word and the videos to potential fans and hate watchers alike. And in the meantime, we'll be pondering politics again with you very soon.